What's up? It's Way Up with Angela Yee. And you know I love when you come up here. Joy Ann Reid is here.
Hello.
I was listen every day, the Joy Reid Show, when I can listen to kind of get informed. And I just want to start this off by saying congratulations. You're almost at 400,000 subs on there.
Yeah, I mean, we've grown really fast. It was so freaky. We got an email from YouTube. This morning, I woke up to them saying, hey, we love what you're doing. We want to partner. And so it's like when we got their attention, that means we're doing something right.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I love it. And I love the unfiltered way that you're able to speak. I always tell you that. But it was really important for me to have you up here right now because Venezuela, everything that's going on there, everything that's going on here with ICE, the Affordable Care Act, there's so much happening. And I really want to make sure that we're intentional about where we consume information from. Because as you pointed out on the Joy Reid Show, if you're looking at the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, versus reading articles that with the headline on the New York Times, you might have a vastly different point of view about what's going on.
Absolutely. And the problem is that so many of these major media organizations are now owned by a billionaire or a set of billionaires who have business before the government and want to be friendly with with the Trump administration. So they are calibrating everything that's being said in the news department on the air to make sure that they're not offending Donald Trump.
Right.
I don't even want, I'm done with CBS News. Like, I can't even watch it anymore. Connie Chung, veteran of CBS News, she's like, she can't even watch it anymore because they're doing things like doing a puff piece about Marco Rubio, both sidesing January 6th insurrection.
He don't even know how to answer questions directly. And like you said, when they're being interviewed by women, or you called him dickish, right, in his responses and his personality. But like you said, it's kind of like you get points with that administration when you're rude to, in particular, women reporters.
Correct.
And people just holding you accountable and asking you questions. Your job, representing us as, you know, what you're getting paid to do, is to be able to respond to those tough questions and also have accountability and also take into account different points of view. But it doesn't seem like that's what's happening.
No, they're all performing. You know, whenever Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, who calls himself the Secretary of War, which actually isn't true, and any media calling him the Secretary of War is just kissing Trump's ass because there's been no change in the name of the Defense Department. Sorry, I have I got my Invisalign, so it's like obstructing my speech a little bit. But so, you know, Marco Rubio goes on, he did what they call the full Ginsburg. He did all the Sunday shows. And it's as if in each of those interviews, he was trying to see how much of an asshole he could be.
Right.
Because Trump is impressed with that.
Yeah.
Specifically when he's an asshole to a woman reporter. Trump loves that. So they're all performing for him like trained seals. They're not answering questions.
All right. So let's break down Venezuela in layman's terms for people who are listening. And I know a lot of times we feel like, well, I'm not into politics, or I don't know, or I'm not from Venezuela, so I shouldn't have. And I've seen people who are from Venezuela saying, y'all don't know anything, so don't try to tell us how we should feel about something. This is great for us. You know, groceries, we haven't been able to do this. We had a dictator in office. So just to report on what actually happened, right? Because like you said, depending on what you read, and I want you to also talk about the different headlines. What happened in Venezuela on my birthday, January 3rd?
On your birthday, January 3rd. What a birthday present. Essentially, the Trump regime committed an act of war against a sovereign country who we're not at war with. They escalated what they had already been doing, which is bombing ships off of the coast of Venezuela, including killing, you know, Trinidadian fishermen because Trinidad is so close to Venezuela, and just bombing ships, taking control like pirates of oil tankers, all in a quest, at least according to Donald Trump, who I have to give him one thing, he's straightforward and he's honest about what he's going to do. He said, I want the oil. I want Venezuela's oil, and I'm going to get it. And the whole goal here, if to put it very quickly, to make it really short, is what's happened over the last decade is that as the United States has really ignored the Caribbean, ignored Latin America, ignored our own hemisphere, China has been knocking on everybody's door. If you go to Jamaica right now, all of the construction, China. If you go to anywhere in Central or South America, Bahamas, any place in the Caribbean, China is everywhere. And I'm sure we've all noticed it. They're also everywhere in Central and South America, including becoming the biggest customer for what little oil Venezuela has been selling. They've become not just their biggest customer, but since we are no longer in any kind of a relationship with Venezuela. They're sanctioned. We have sanctions against them because Nicolas Maduro is a dictator who stole an election, yada, yada, yada. They've been not just selling oil to China, but actually buying it in China's currency. And so what a lot of the mainstream media is talking about, they're missing the bigger story. Mm-hmm. The bigger story is that China is not just taking over the world in terms of becoming the favorite partner of every developing country in the world to do business with. If you want to build roads, if you want to build bridges, if you want any infrastructure, they ain't coming to us, they're going to them.
Right.
But they're also starting to use their currency, which means that the U.S. dollar is no longer the
most
only
powerful
favored currency on earth. The Chinese yuan is challenging us. And if you always wondered why we tend to have like cheap stuff in the store, we can buy TVs for $1,000 instead of $3,000, cheap iPhones, all the
it
stuff
comes from China.
Well, it's partly because of China, but it's also because of our dollar. Mm-hmm. The dominance of the U.S. dollar has kept our economy good for decades. And the reason that you're so accustomed to buying things cheap in a country that doesn't make anything is because the dollar has been the king of the world. It isn't anymore.
Right.
Starting in June of 2024, Saudi Arabia, who's one of the biggest suppliers of oil in the world, no longer has to buy or sell oil in dollars. That deal that Richard Nixon made in 1973 ended in June of 2024. That changed the world. It means it's a free-for-all. People are selling oil in their own currency. They're selling oil in rubles, Russian rubles. They're selling it in Chinese yuan. And that means that our economy, even if you don't care about politics, when the dollar is no longer the main currency people are spending and buying and selling it around the world, our economy is about to get jacked.
And our passport is also not the most powerful passport like it used to be either.
No.
And a lot of people, we've seen tourism has gone down. We've seen that even with students, exchange students, they're not coming here like they used to. And that affects everybody and everybody's economy.
Right. And so even if people don't care, think about, like, for instance, I have a friend that just came back from Las Vegas. No problem getting tables.
Right.
No problem getting
Las Vegas
reservations.
is struggling right now.
Struggling. And people, and their whole economy is tourism. Same with Florida. Florida tourism, way down. New York tourism, way down. It affects all of us because Trump has alienated the whole world with those tariffs, with the bullying, with threatening to invade 10 countries and saying he's, you know.
Greenland. Like, why do we want Greenland? Can you break that down? Because, not we, but why does Trump want Greenland? Because that's another place now that he's talking about taking over.
He wants Greenland for the same reason he's saying he wants to take over Canada, for the same reason he wants to take over Venezuela, oil, and what they call they're these minerals, these sort of specific minerals that are under Greenland's soil that you can't get anywhere else, and they're very profitable if you can get control of them and sell them. And Greenland is one of the few places that has them. So we want these minerals. We just want their minerals. We want what's under the soil.
All right, so just to wrap this part up, this has nothing to do with the drug trafficking because that
None
is
of it. That's not,
the
no.
guise of why Nicolas Maduro was arrested, right? And, well, not arrested, but kidnapped. Him and his wife were kidnapped, and they broke his wife's ribs in the process of all of that. Because I think two things can be true. I didn't know that much about him, but from what we've been seeing, a dictator, stole the election, got his opposition out of there, and so they're rejoicing the fact that he's no longer in power, but at the same time, the way that he went about it with no type of checks and balances system here, Congress had no idea that this was going to happen, but the oil companies knew.
The oil companies got a heads up. Our Congress did not get a heads up. But here's the other thing people need to understand. We did not overthrow Maduro's regime. Everyone but him and his wife are still in power.
Yeah,
so
it's the same people.
It's the same people. So if you're a Venezuelan who's cheering right now, understand that the Trump regime is now going to say Venezuela belongs to the oil companies. Our companies run it, and now it's safe to go home. You're going to go home to the same guy running the secret police, the same people who are killing you, the same people except for Maduro himself and his wife. The rest of them are still in power, and Trump is willing to do business with them because all they care about is the oil and forcing Venezuela to sell oil in dollars. The main issue is it's oil, but they're down to like 10% of their real output in oil. The main thing is if you are a dictator that's got oil under the soil in your country and you try to sell oil in anything but dollars, You find out Saddam Hussein got because he tried to do it. Mossadegh back in 1957 in Iran tried to nationalize their oil and sell it in whatever currency he wanted. He got. Libya, Muammar Gaddafi said, hey, maybe we'll sell oil in gold that we'll mine right here in Libya. He got. There's a trend. If you try to sell oil or minerals in anything but dollars, the United States will take you down. This was the same thing that happened that we've done before we did it in Venezuela.
Now, some people are under the impression that Donald Trump is going to be running Venezuela now.
That's what Trump thinks.
And I saw Marco Rubio kind of ducking and dodging around that question.
Yeah.
How is that even possible? Because there's a whole country here to run that is a disaster right now.
They can't even run the United States.
Right.
They can't. I mean, can you imagine these people who can't get us health care and can't figure out how to make, this country affordable are going to also run that country?
Right.
Not going to happen. It's what we're going to get is a vacuum like we get every time we try to do regime change. It's going to be a mess. And the other thing we need to remember is we did this in Kuwait back in the 90s. We went in, invaded them for the oil companies to make the U.S. oil companies take over Kuwait. Kuwaitis just started burning the oil fields. That's a country of 30 million people. Are they all going to cooperate with Marco Rubio and Donald Trump running their country? Some of them are going to resist, and they could do a lot of damage to those oil fields. They could just start burning them.
I was also reading an article about oil not being it's not going to affect China as much as they think it is because they've been moving to clean energy.
Correct.
And in general, I think that's been a movement toward clean energy. So what does that mean? Because maybe this oil isn't going to be as valuable as it once was.
It's not. The thing that's kind of sad about the current administration and what they're doing, they're chasing the 19th century. They want 19th century laws for women and black people.
Yeah.
They also want a 19th century economy with manufacturing and oil. Whereas the rest of the world, particularly China, they're moving on.
Yeah.
They're moving on from the dollar. They're moving on from fossil fuels. Even Saudi Arabia, that they're all about oil, they're moving on. They're running comedy shows. They want to get into the entertainment industry. They're trying to create their own Hollywood. Everyone else is moving on except Donald Trump, who still lives in the 80s. So they're trying to create this old-fashioned economy based on old-fashioned fossil fuels.
Yeah.
It's never coming back. The rest of the world is moving on from us. And the challenge we're going to have is that we're so spoiled and used to being the country everyone wants to send their kid to university here. Everyone wants to come here to visit. Everyone wants to go to San Francisco and New Orleans. Everyone wants to visit Las Vegas and New York. That's all going away. No one wants to do business with us. They don't want to send their kids here. They don't want our oil. They don't want our economy. They don't want our rules and our bossing them around. The rest of the world is moving on. And Donald Trump is making a move on.
And it feels dangerous here because now I want to talk about ICE. And we saw what happened in Minneapolis. I mean, an absolute disaster. Renee Good shot and killed by an ICE agent. I believe his name was Jonathan Ross.
Jonathan Ross.
I saw his father spoke out and said that nothing's going to happen to him, and he was proud of him, acting like he had done nothing wrong. And when you watch that video, and I want to say my dad's been staying at my house, and he literally watched it over and over, probably about 30 times to the point where I was like, Dad, and we've seen, different video. I saw you had it on the Joy Reid show where you were discussing and breaking down exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to break that down now because I've seen people in my comments saying things like, well, that's why the illegals shouldn't be here. I had somebody call in the other day and talk about how he was at a party and ICE came in and raided the party. He's Mexican, but he's a citizen here.
Right.
And everybody was. It was a quinceañero. And they zip tied them, pulled him up by his zip tie. He had his documentation, fortunately for him, and was able to get released. But after he got roughed up and beat up and all of that. And this is really tragic. I can't even imagine what that must feel like and the PTSD that you have after something like that. But I just want you to break down what happened with Renee.
So there are about 2,000 ICE agents that have been surged into Minnesota because, of course, Trump is whipping up this fear of Somalis, running rampant over their welfare system. They're like, we're going to deport as many as we can get our hands on, as well as obviously as many brown people as they can get their hands on. This woman was part of a group of people who they trained to try to be ICE interrupters. Mm-hmm. And what they try to do is observe what ICE is doing, film them, and try to use their white privilege, to be honest. They're mainly white people.
Which is what we ask.
Which is what we ask them to do, right?
Yeah.
Because black people, we can't put our bodies on the line because cops will shoot us. And so the presumption had been, particularly a white woman. Because remember, part of the rationale for doing this with ICE is to save white women, pristine white women, from being ravaged by, criminal brown men. So white women, have been taking the lead in being the ones to step forward and challenge ICE and to say, as white people, we can step to ICE and step to police in a different way. In this case, this white woman and her wife, who's also a white woman, were driving in an SUV. They parked to try to block ICE from snatching people out of a suburban neighborhood. This was not like on the mean streets in Minneapolis. This was in a suburb.
Yeah,
with,
the neighbor
houses.
was a doctor.
The neighbor's a doctor. This is a quiet white suburb. So they're driving and they park. The ICE agents come up to the car. They get out of the car and to shorten it, they bang on her door and tell her, get out of the car. They order her to get out of the car. She panics and starts to back up to get away. And one of the ICE officers, Jonathan Ross, shot 3 times into the car, shot her in the face and killed her. The reason I think this is significant and is different from the previous shootings is, to me, this is a George Floyd moment.
And not far from
where that happened, right? 6 years later. And the reason I think it's a George Floyd moment is that George Floyd answered the question, are Black people making it up when we say cops can just kill us and will, right? And we saw a police officer with people filming him was willing to kill George Floyd in front of a crowd on camera. In this case, I think it's a George Floyd moment because this is one of those moments when somebody who's supposed to be safe with law enforcement, a white woman, a Christian, a mom, she had just dropped her kid off, her 6-year-old off at school, who's doing all the right things. She is a citizen. This is not a question of her being an undocumented immigrant.
It didn't feel like ICE agents were in danger of their lives in any way. They could easily have moved out of the way.
Easily. Right. And did move out of the way.
Yes.
And walked away, no injuries. The chief of police in Minneapolis said no one was injured except the woman who is dead. None of those men were injured. And it was that moment where you realize nobody's safe.
Yeah.
White women aren't safe. They'll kill them too. And so I think it's a George Floyd level moment. I think Renee Good becomes like the George Floyd of this resistance against ICE, because if a white woman, they've been killing brown people and shooting brown people, shooting Black people, harassing them, throwing them to the ground, degrading them.
It's a regular day.
As a regular day.
Yeah.
But, when we're going to talk about on the show tonight is, they were doing that to Black people until they did it to a little northern boy named Emmett Till. And all of a sudden it was a different level of alarm. There's a different level of alarm when you did it to Viola Liuzzo or Reverend James Reeb, who were white, or Goodman and Schwerner, who were with Cheney and treated just like Cheney. And so I think there are these moments in history when the state commits violence against somebody who's supposed to be safe with them.
And then I think the reaction afterward is also, instead of saying this is a tragedy, this should have never happened, the reaction was basically Trump and his supporters.
And J.D. Vance
saying that this was justified and she was in the wrong and painting her out to be some type of criminal.
A terrorist.
Yeah.
Kristi Noem and J.D. Vance called her a terrorist. Even Trump, when the New York Times did an editorial interview with him, they played him the video, and even he couldn't stand by that. He started backtracking off of calling her a terrorist when he watched the video.
Right.
And by the way, there's lots of video. CNN's compiled it. I am going to play a slow-mo version of it. I'm like your dad. I've been watching this thing on loop because I want to see every angle.
And there's
of it.
audio, too, where you can hear certain things that she's saying.
You can hear what she's saying, and you can also see that this officer was not in any danger. If you do the slow-mo, you can see him lean back. He is not being touched by the car, point his gun at this white woman and shoot her in the face 3 times. He was not in danger. In any other situation, you would expect the Justice Department to investigate, but now the FBI is refusing to cooperate with local law enforcement. They normally cooperate in a shooting like this. They're refusing to cooperate. So that just shows me that they know that this is wrong.
In addition, after she was shot and killed, we talked about the neighbor who was a doctor, wanted to go and actually try to do something, and they would not let her do that.
Would not allow a doctor to help, would not allow her to, and you didn't see anyone trying to give her aid at all. This guy shot her and then walked away and then was waving the crowd off. There was no attempt to do CPR. There was no attempt to save her life. Nothing was done.
I want to ask you, do you think, because like I said, Jonathan Ross, we're going to say his name, his father, Ed Ross has defended his son's actions, said he will not be charged with anything. She hit him. He also had an officer whose arm was in the car. That's what he told the Daily Mail. What do you see happening? Because I know people are calling for there to be some type of justice.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what do you think is going to happen?
What I would say is to all of these ICE officers who are getting their, I don't even know if they've ever collected their $50,000 bonuses to sign up for this duty. I would not listen to Stephen Miller and J.D. Vance giving you legal advice, because I would more listen to J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, who said, y'all just keep playing, because there will be a change in administration and there will be a different Justice Department one day. And the statute of limitations on murder is long. And there are also the possibility of state charges, which Donald Trump can't help you with. He cannot pardon you if you get charged by the state. If this guy gets charged with murder in the state of Minnesota, there's nothing Trump can do about it. And I would not get too comfortable. These people are not showing warrants, which they're required to do. They're violating people's Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. There's something called a constitutional violation under color of law. And if you are exercising undue force without asking, having a reasonable attempt to get the person to comply, you don't have absolute immunity. That is just not true. I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you that the lawyers I'm talking to are saying they think they have immunity. That's why they're acting like this.
Yeah, and I think this is also, we have to look at this as sets a precedent, right? Because I think with a lot of these ICE agents, they feel like they can do whatever they want and know that they'll be backed by the administration, by the president, and praised for doing things like this. It is murder. And
they're also recruiting so aggressively.
Oh, my God. I saw Spotify is like, we're not going to advertise anymore for ICE.
Yeah, and Aero, I think it's the company's called Aero, one of the airlines they've been using to fly people out of the country. They've said, we're done. We're not going to do business with you.
We saw the Hilton hotel that actually wouldn't let them stay there, but now Hilton cut them off.
Yeah. I mean, people are going to start to treat ICE like the pariahs they really deserve to be. And you're going to start to see that spreading. Home Depot is getting boycotted because of their not stopping ICE from coming in. And I think this woman, because again, it's not that the black and brown lives that have been interrupted and destroyed by ICE don't matter. They obviously matter. But we live in America. This white lady, this Christian white mom, they killed her. I think it's an Emmett Till, George Floyd moment.
And, I just want to respond to people who were in my comments saying, oh, well, these illegals shouldn't be here. Where can Americans go and just take up residence illegally anytime they want to? There are people who had status here that got revoked. I mean, I'm looking at people who have lived here basically their whole lives and then have been deported to places they've never even been to.
They've never been. And by the way, during the pandemic, I saw a lot of Americans going and taking up residents in Mexico where they're not from because they wanted to be in a warm space during the pandemic.
I did go to Mexico for a bit.
A lot of people did, right? And so when Americans are saying, I want to leave the country because, Trump is bothering me, you don't want people to say, well, you can't come here. Americans do it all the time. It's not as if it's only other people who do it. Americans do it too. Americans go where they want to go and they stay and they overstay their visas. That's not uncommon. And the other thing is we always forget that there's something pulling these people here, which is the work that most Americans are not interested in doing.
Right.
I challenge you to find 10 Americans willing to go in the fields and pick lettuce. Pick tomatoes.
Listen, it's been, and we've seen how hard it's been for certain people who say they have a team of people they need to hire to do contracting work, and it's been really, really hard for people to even get people who want to come to work. Even if you're here legally, you don't know if something's going to happen. If you're going to get arrested, you're going to get detained, and that has happened. I know people have said, "Oh, well, if you're here and you're supposed to be here, you're fine," but it has happened.
It has happened, and if you're in that Minneapolis neighborhood, not only are you being terrorized by these people, as J.D. Vance said, going door to door in a white suburban neighborhood. They're tracking everyone's phone. They're using Palantir technology to track our phones so that they can find anyone they think might be undocumented. They're, because the Supreme Court said they could, racially profiling people. So a Latino who's fully American, born here, got a passport, but has an accent or is brown, they're stopping them. It feels very much like white South Africa in the 80s. Any person who is not white can be stopped, can be questioned based on their accent, can have their papers demanded. People are having to walk around. People I know who are citizens have to walk around with their passport or their birth certificate. This is like white South Africa. Who wants to live in a country where random men who do not have to show you a badge, who do not have to show you a warrant, can simply walk up to you, demand to know, are you an American citizen, can bust into your home, no warrant, nothing, and just demand to see your papers? This is not a country anyone would want to visit or live in.
Now, midterms are coming up, and I do see some Republicans actually maybe feeling like they have, I don't know, like maybe 5. So I want to talk about, have you seen, or do you feel like there's been any type of pushback from people that, obviously we saw Marjorie Taylor Greene, and that was with the Epstein files, but have you seen any type of like, okay, any humanity, would you say?
I would say the Epstein files was one instance where you did see a pushback, because I think they
ain't talking about that at all no more right now.
And also Trump has succeeded in getting that off the front pages. But you are seeing people break away on 2 things. One, on this gerrymandering. In Indiana, they were like, we're not gerrymandering our state for you. Donald Trump insulted one of the senior Republicans by using the R word, and that man happens to have a son who's mentally disabled. And so that turned people off, and people were like, I'm not doing it. So there's some states where they're saying we're not going to do gerrymandering and mess with our maps to help you get more seats in Congress. The other one is the Affordable Care Act.
Yes.
And this is self-interest. This has nothing to do with humanity. These Republicans are going home, and just like Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying, her kids can't afford health care. These Republicans, most of them are in red states that didn't expand Obamacare. The subsidies, the federal subsidies for a lot of their constituents are the only way they get health care. So people are screaming at them, no, I need those subsidies. So you're starting to see it. So you did see the House defy Donald Trump, use what's called a discharge petition, meaning they can go around the Speaker of the House, force a bill onto the floor, and it did pass.
But it still has to make it through the Senate.
And the problem we have in the Senate is that the sucker ass 6, I guess you could call them, was it 6 of them, that decided to go ahead and reopen the government without getting a deal to extend those subsidies. Now we have to see if John Thune, they have more power. The Senate works a little differently. You can't just force things onto the floor. And so if Republicans who have the majority don't allow a vote on this bill, it's still dead in the water. The House passes whatever it wants. If the Senate doesn't take it up, it doesn't go anywhere.
And speaking of the midterms and the Affordable Care Act, Donald Trump was very upset that some Republicans in the House sided with the Democrats. And I see the Republicans scrambling now, like, we have to really stick together now. You can't go against the home team.
Yeah, they're so scared. I mean, there are a few like Rand Paul, because the other thing they're breaking away on is whether or not we can just start a war, whether or not the White House can start a war.
Actually have attempted to say, no, you can't do whatever you want.
And a few that I was surprised about, Josh Hawley signed on, that was like 7 of them who are like, you can't just start a war, right? So, and Rand Paul's been very consistent, just as Congressman Massey on the House side has been consistent about some things. I don't count on Republicans to stand against Trump. In the end, they always fold because they're too afraid of his base. They're too afraid of his supporters. And his supporters are a religious cult. They're going to do whatever Trump wants. And I think in the end, they just do what he says.
All right. So what should we be doing now? As I want to say this, I was in St. Croix when everything happened in Venezuela, right? And then it was very difficult for people who were trying to travel for the next couple of days out of the Caribbean. And I also was a little concerned, like, what's going to happen here? Because everybody does not agree with Donald Trump kidnapping the president, dictator, whatever you want to call him, out of Venezuela. And so I'm a little like, okay, is something going to happen here?
That is literally my son, who was trying to call me while I was talking to you, has been calling me about this every day because he lives in the city. He lives in New York City. And you have to remember, Venezuela does have close relationships with Iran, and Iran does have close relationships with terrorist groups like Hezbollah. That doesn't mean there's going to be terrorism in reaction to Donald Trump overthrowing their dictator, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
Right,
either.
We don't know.
And if it happens, people tend to go for the marquee cities. And
D.C.
it tends to be
here.
D.C., New York, and the blue cities that didn't do anything. It's like, this isn't even our fault. And so I think, unfortunately, if something like that were to happen, I think we should be concerned about it. But again, the whole regime is still in place. It's not like it's just Maduro and his wife that got.
You take one person out, nobody that has anything to do with the drug cartels, like none of the drug cartel people, they're still fine.
They're still there.
Even though the guys was, you guys are shipping drugs into
Yeah.
And that's
also,
the whole reason we did this.
supposedly, and they dropped that real quick. And by the way, if it's about drugs, then why is the former president of Honduras free to go when he was literally a drug dealer? Got a pardon. And Maduro is a lot of bad things, but even the kind of drugs they're saying come out there don't even come from there. It comes from, Mexico and other places. Yeah, there's probably drug shipments of cocaine that go through all these Latin American countries. But in some cases, Trump is fine with it. They don't care about drugs, and they certainly don't care about his base being strung out. They don't care about that.
What do you think is going to happen with midterms? And if, today we're looking at everything that's happening, the trajectory that we're on, what do you anticipate?
I mean, if we have free and fair elections, which is definitely not certain. They've done a lot to mess with elections, and I don't know how much confidence I have that the elections will be untainted. But if we had untainted elections, I think Democrats would take over the House for sure. There's a Republican House member that just died out of California, so they only have a one-seat majority in the House now. It's very, very tight. It's going to be hard for Republicans to hold on to the House. I think it's likely Democrats get the House. The Senate is a little more up in the air.
That's why I want to tell everybody, y'all got to vote. And I want to say I saw your sit-down interview with Mamdani.
Yeah.
And I met Mamdani super early on when there were so many people that were in the race for mayor of New York. And I remember thinking to myself, I liked him. He came to this event that I was hosting at Brick. It was about the arts and New York City. And he got there a little late because he took the train. Mm-hmm. He was like, sorry, I'm late. My train was delayed. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I didn't really know much about him, right? And I was like, this is a long shot for him. I'm looking at everybody, the state controller, like everybody else who's, running, obviously Eric Adams. And then, we knew Cuomo hadn't thrown his hat in yet, but he was going to. And that's why voting matters, though. I do want to say, I think that's a prime example of somebody who was really an underdog at first.
Mm-hmm. And it also shows you that people who, especially like young people folks are like, well, they don't care about voting. They'll vote if you give them something to vote for.
Right.
And I think it really is a good lesson for the Democratic Party. No, not everybody's going to be a Mamdani, but he won by the largest margin in 30 years. He won overwhelmingly, and he won in places he was not supposed to win on paper because people who don't normally vote came out and voted for him. And so I think what Democrats need to learn is sometimes y'all are just not offering people a reason to come out and vote. Mm-hmm. And saying Trump is bad is not enough. People are going to vote against to a certain extent, but people also want to vote for something. Right. And what I think he did that was brilliant is he said, let me give you something to vote for. Your rent is too damn high. Let me help with that. Your food costs are too high. Let me help with that. Childcare. And they've already got
that's already in motion.
Already in motion to give people free childcare. And the free buses, people are like, that's never going to happen until it does. If you get somebody who understands how to use executive power and is not afraid, what I love about Mamdani is he's too young to be jaded about politics and think I can only nickel and dime these promises. He is too young to not want to do everything he said he wants to do and to aggressively push to use as much power as he can. That's not like normal Democrats. They normally nickel and dime their power and they're like ashamed of it.
Yeah, because I think there's always this dynamic where you're like, okay, this person, doesn't have enough experience versus this person is old. We need to get them out of there.
Yeah.
We need to get rid of that. So there's always like this balance of, do we want somebody who's like super experienced, been doing this for a long time, knows everybody? Cuomo was kind of like running on the premise that he could talk to Trump.
Right.
And make things happen. Yeah. Eric Adams at first too, was kind of running on that premise. And then Mamdani went and met with Trump. What did you think about that? Because I want to know, because people were definitely up in arms like, what is this about? And Trump seemed to take a liking to him.
It seemed like Trump fell in love with this man. And I did ask him, like, what did you do? Like, how did you get? But I think what it is that Trump likes stars. Mm-hmm. He likes people who he thinks are celebrities.
And he thought he was handsome.
Yeah. And remember when at the Jimmy Carter funeral, he was like trying to kiki with Obama. Like he was all in Obama's face. I was like, I thought you hated Obama.
We don't like each other.
He loves celebrities. And anyone he thinks is a handsome celebrity, he really wants to suck up to them. Mm-hmm. So I think that was part of it. And also I think he spoke his language. He's like, look, let's just talk business. I'm not here to be your friend. You're not here to be my friend. You're still a dictator to me. You're still a fascist to me. I don't care. Let's talk business. And Trump, I think, respects somebody that's strong, that sticks to their principles. And look, if you're the people who are saying he shouldn't have gone and met with him, yeah, he should have. You're the mayor of the most important city in the country.
Where Donald Trump is from.
Where he's from. And it's the financial capital of the United States. Mm-hmm. You don't have to deal with him. You got to figure out how to deal with them. And I think it was smart for him to get in there and figure out how we going to deal with each other, right? I mean, FDR had to deal with Stalin. So
right.
It's the way it is.
Whew. Well, listen, I appreciate you so much. It's always to me just amazing that you come and give me your time, because it's important for my platform, but for people who listen to this show. And I started it off talking about how we really need to be intentional about what networks and what outlets that we're paying attention to. Yeah. I told you I watch the Joy Reid show all the time, and that is where I'm able to really kind of see what's going on, and you can't not pay attention. Yeah. I had a conversation with somebody the other day that was like, I really don't know anything about politics, but there's you don't have to be an expert. I'm definitely not an expert in anything, but I'm paying attention so that I know what's going on. And I always vote, and I always tell people that you need to get out there and vote, and I always think about who I think would be a good leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, there's a famous saying that I think is true, that just because you're not interested in politics doesn't mean that politics is not interested in you.
Absolutely.
And the stuff they're doing, you think it doesn't affect you, go ahead and deport 2-3 million undocumented people. Watch the price of everything you eat, every construction project, everything go up. Mess with China, keep messing with them. Then walk in Walmart, go ahead and tariff them. Everything in Walmart was made in China. Mm-hmm. So when they mess with China, they're messing with your Walmart. They're messing with your shopping
machine.
They're messing, right. If you want to mess with Japan, Alibaba. Come on. I mean, what do we make in this country? Your PlayStation is made in Japan. Mm-hmm. Your iPhone is made in Asia. The parts come from Africa.
And it's easy to say we should just make stuff here, but you know how long and hard that's going to be, and the quality of what that's about to be like?
Your iPhone's going to be even jankier than they are now. They're bad enough. No, we don't have the expertise. We don't know how to do that.
And not for the barbs to come at you, but what did you think about Nicki Minaj?
Listen, speaking of undocumented people, this lady came here, and by the way, we share a birthday, so it's a little weird that we always we've had beef before. So I was a fan of her music. I think she's a musical talent. I mean, just like Kanye West, these are talented musicians. Nobody should never listen to anything she says other than just her music. This lady came here at 5 years old, undocumented. She understands what it's like to be undocumented. Grew up in this city. She's deportable, because she definitely was undocumented originally. She is a Trinidadian. She didn't say anything about the killing of those Trinidadian fishermen. I'm quite sure the people in Trini noticed that she doesn't seem to care about her people. And the idea of sucking up to Trump, not long after you said you don't want a Melania because you don't want a weak woman, right? You don't want somebody that's just sucking up to the president. And after you criticized his deportation policies yourself, and now all of a sudden you're kissing his ass.
What do you think happened?
I think she has a brother and a husband who've got some serious legal issues around pedophilia, particularly her brother, who's serving 25 to life or something for the violation of a child or of children. And I think she's thinking, how I could get a pardon? I'll go be friends with the Turning Points USA people. I'll kiss Trump's ass and Vance's ass, and maybe I'll get pardons, and maybe I won't get deported. I mean, my cynical self says that she's trying to protect herself, her brother, and her husband from the administration by kissing their ass, and it's embarrassing and sad. And as a hip hop fan, I think it's the thing that hurts me the most is watching hip hop artists that I respect who I respect musically all line up for Trump. Because they get nothing from it. He will never respect you. You will never be one of them.
Well, I've seen people get pardons.
You'll get your pardon?
I've seen people get that. Diddy's not getting his.
No, apparently not.
Yeah, which I was surprised about, because I know it's all about the money. So I don't know what happened there.
He probably didn't write a big enough check. He cheap though. They say he's cheap. You got to give the real money, because apparently that's what you got to do. Ask Carlos Watson. I want to know how much money they're all paying, but you got to give the money.
Because Carlos Watson got his pardon too. Yeah, from Ozzy Media.
He did.
Ooh, well, Joy, we got to have a pop culture show one day.
We should, girl. Oh, don't get me started.
I know you talk about the news and politics and all of that all the time.
Okay, let's do. If you haven't watched it, watch Stranger Things, and then we should do a Stranger Things conversation. I'm obsessed. Obsessed.
Okay, and I saw Prince. His music catalog shot up 200% because of Stranger Things.
Oh, absolutely, and not only Stranger Things, but the one that I just got finished watching, Welcome to Derry.
Oh, I was watching that too.
Obsessed. Welcome to Derry is actually
horror is my favorite genre of to watch.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I love horror too.
Yeah,
so, I love a zombie thing, but no, it's a good one. Well, I mean, Welcome to Derry is the one I actually love the most, because they snuck a very black narrative into something that you wouldn't even think of. The It franchise is its own thing, but I'm not going to spoil it for you, but there's a character in Welcome to Derry that this is the prequel to The Shining.
What? See, I
Trust
haven't
me.
finished it.
Listen, go in a wormhole.
That first
It is a
episode where the
prequel
kid
to
is
The
in the car,
Shining.
and then yeah. Okay, good. I'm on it. That means I gotta go back because I was actually at home putting together furniture while I was watching it.
Right.
So I was like missing things and having to rewind it. But I'm gonna make
you
sure I
gotta go
focus.
back.
Yeah,
Start
I
from
gotta
the beginning
focus.
and go all the way through. Welcome to Derry. That is actually, to me, the best series that's out right now. It's so
Dang,
good. It
okay.
is so good. It's so nuanced, and it's giving you timelines and history and different eras and stuff. But when I finally got that connection to The Shining, one of my favorite films, and I love Stephen King, baby, it will blow your mind.
Okay, I'm on it. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I always appreciate it. I know you're gonna come back because I feel
Yes.
like we here. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you, sis. I appreciate you.
All right, it's way up.